Hey, Vinny Milkus Outdoors. Again, I got a couple topics. One, the reason I'm not fishing is because I talked about my knee and whatnot. I'm still waiting on that, but then my truck's down as well. Long story, there's a part that's just in short supply right now for a diesel. If you drive a diesel, you kind of understand where I'm coming from. Today I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Colorado River system because something else, and this doesn't have to do with the drought. It has to do with a fish species, which is always a contention in this area of the country. There's always stuff with whether it be the humpback sucker, squaw, whatever you want to call it, all these endangered species. But first off, I want to start because there's some really bad news, or I don't know if it's really bad news. For me, it's kind of bad because some of my favorite baits apparently they just disappeared, right? So they're discontinued, in my opinion. Of course, this is why I'm even talking about this. Is they're discontinued, but at the same time, the company will not tell me they're discontinued. So here's the deal. So recently, I don't know, a few months ago, I was like, well, I'm going to stock up on some of my flipping baits. Some of these other baits that I like that are not, they might not be that popular. I know guys that do use them. That's the thing. It's interesting. And when I do buy them, I usually buy, quite a few packs for the year. And yeah, I do use the glue system. I think I've gone over in other videos, like to keep them because they're Yamamoto stuff. So they're salty and they, split. But anyway, so significant. I know, like I said, I know guys that use this stuff. But anyway, I'm going to show you. So there's 3 baits in particular from this one company. So it's Yamamoto baits, right? So one, I got a couple packs here. The only thing I don't have is the California roll. So if you fish the California roll, and a lot of you guys do, you know what I'm talking about. Like I can't find that bait anywhere. You can probably find it, but it's really tough. It's not like you just go to Tackle Warehouse to order that anymore. And I've checked other places as well. But the Mermaid, which if you're not familiar with the Mermaid, I don't think I've really done too much on that. This dude. I love that bait. I don't know what's going on with this. But I love that bait. I have no idea why that one was discontinued, because it came out along the lines with the Cowboy, right? And I guess you'd have to pick between it, but to me, I'd probably discontinue the Cowboy because you have other double-tailed grubs and whatnot. But why discontinue them altogether? I bought a lot of mermaids. I like to fish the Mermaid. But I could see, I know a lot more guys that fish this next bait, the California roll, and the Shinsho, or whatever. It's salamander in Japanese, but I've done videos on this. Like, I flip that bait a lot. I love this bait all year, and I buy a lot of them, and I know guys that buy them. Fish them all different kinds. I like to flip it on a Tokyo rig and whatnot, but I can't find them anywhere. But here's the bigger thing. So I email GSM because they're the ones that bought out Yamamoto a few years ago. So if you don't know, Yamamoto was staged out of Page, Arizona by Gary Yamamoto. And anyway, the guys, Gary Yamamoto's done a lot, and so he, sold his company. I'm sure just enjoy life and fish and do all that stuff. GSM, who's a more conglomerate company, bought them out. But to make a long story short on that one, so when I realized that these baits are no longer being sold, and there's a lot of baits that are discontinued, that just happens in the industry. But sometimes you can get large orders and they'll run a new batch of them for you, which we've done that with Kalen's grubs for a specific color. That's a whole different old story about the old what my grandpa refers to as a strawberry roan, which is like this clear pink shrimp color. But anyway, I tried to get a hold of them, and they never returned one of my messages. So then I went to just to email them through the customer service or whatever, and I get a generic message. And I'm simply asking, hey, is this bait discontinued? If so, what are you guys doing with the molds? Or I was going to subsequently ask, is it okay if I replicate this bait just out of courtesy? I know people just do it anyway, but I would rather have the courtesy of them saying, yeah, go ahead, because we're not going to use this, or no, we plan on doing something else with this. And that's a no-go. But instead, I get some generic weird email. I guess I can pull it up. So then I was like, well, that's not really, so I respond, that's not what I was asking. I was asking it was discontinued. And then they just refer to me to the, whatever their I can't even remember, but it was like a really weird email that obviously they didn't read it, or if they did read my email, it was just like obfuscation. It wasn't very open, and it gave me a really, so basically, long story short, again, it's like it gave me a kind of a bad taste about this GSM acquisition of Yamamoto. Not the fact that they discontinued some of my favorite baits, but the fact that how they've dealt with me when I just asked them a simple question. Not that I want to, like to make those baits myself, but I was just simply asking if it was discontinued, if that product was, because for some reason it's not displaying, or some people don't have them. And because it's a legitimate question with all the supply shortages. Like, well, is this bait discontinued? If not, like, when can we expect? It's like, well, we're working hard as we can. There's supply disruptions. Oh, I get that, and I think we've all come to terms with some of those issues. But if it is discontinued, then I have some subsequent questions. But they won't even answer if it is discontinued or not. So, I mean, some of you guys, if you happen to be sponsored by these dudes or whatnot, you might have a better relationship with them. But the old Yamamoto baits, I would get some sort of answer. These guys now, I'm not getting anything besides like some like large corporation type email that they don't really pay attention to you, but don't want to say too much. So I'm not having a good gist from Gary Yamamoto. I still love the baits. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to fish the Cinco and all the other jazz, but I might be looking at a different company for flipping baits, or I don't know. It's kind of hard to get away from that Psycho Dad and a couple of those other baits, but I might be more open to other companies, and then or something of the like. It's not that one bait in particular, like the Sancho is so special. It's that spay tail and the way it's weighted and the flatness. And there's probably other baits that are similar to it that I can find from Japan and get away with it, or just go on to flipping something else. I was just more displeased about how the company was reacting to me, because it's been months in the making here of me trying to get a hold of them to see if this bait's still available. Anyway, I know a lot of you guys like the California roll, so it's the same situation there. Okay, let's get on to the Colorado River, because I want to keep this kind of short. We're at 7 minutes already about me talking about a discontinued bait that I love. So I've talked about the water shortage. I've been giving updates on it. Nothing's really new. There's still, there's more political discussion about different compacts or different issues of how they're gonna raise Lake Powell so that we don't get down to a certain level where you can't generate power, or same with Hoover Dam. Where are you going to get that water from? And I did see some interesting ideas from the governor that's running from Arizona, of Kerry Lake, about transporting water back and forth. And I've said that to you. It's like pretty, because there's adequate or above, there's flooding waters in like the Midwest and the East, and that water just goes. They don't even have enough dam area, or I guess lake storage area, to keep all that water. But that's besides the point. So in this article that was over, apparently there was an angler sent in some videos or photos to the either Arizona Game and Fish Department, or I don't know who, I can't recall, but they found smallmouth bass below Glen Canyon Dam. That's the dam that holds Lake Powell up. And I get, if you're ever familiar with Lee's Ferry, it's a prominent trout fishing area. But also in that river, they used to call them the squaw fishing things, the humpback, sucker, and maybe a couple other rare or supposed endangered species. It's funny they call them endangered. I remember as a kid, like in the Colorado River, up in actual western Colorado, catching a bunch of these things, and also catching smallmouth and catfish and oh crap! I just dropped my phone, and like stripe, and even caught I think we caught a striper up there once, because stripers, there's nothing stopping them from going to where I was at from Lake Powell to there. There was nothing stopping them. And same with the smallmouth. That's probably how the smallmouth got up there. Anyway, they found smallmouth, and to me, my initial reaction, having anecdotal experiences with smallmouth and their ability to, one, survive in colder than average river systems, but then also the ability for them to move vast areas. Well, a lot of fish do that too. I mean, they got fins and there's water. And I know we like to, even in some scientific studies, it said, well, these fish only live in a certain area of their life, but there's a reason why they spread through whatever various mechanisms, whether it be birds and eggs or them just swimming up these things, So there's nothing really stopping a smallmouth from Lake Mead traversing its way up that far in the Grand Canyon area. That was my first thought. because their initial speculation was, which I bet you could probably prove this genetically if their assertion is correct, that smallmouth that they have found in the Colorado River below Glen Canyon Dam is related to smallmouth in Lake Powell. But I mean, that's probably time and money they don't want to spend. But their thing was that the lake is getting so low that it's allowing these, because if you've ever heard the term of two-story fishery, or there's a certain level where there's no oxygen below it, and there's only certain fish species can live underneath there, or the water's so cold. So a dam that's there's 180 feet of depth where the water is coming out. Normally on Lake Powell, you're probably not going to get like a smallmouth getting flushed down that far. They're saying that now the water level is getting so far down that they're being flushed through the dam, and some of them are surviving. Now, if this is true, you should also find one. There's a couple ways to find this true. One, you would find probably stripers there. Two, you find the catfish, and a few other species, walleye possibly. But with that going along that lines, you also have those same species in Lake Mead, and who's to say, especially a striper, couldn't make his way all the way up there. So, I mean, I don't know where they're coming to this conclusion that it's coming straight from Glen Canyon Dam. That's one. I mean, granted, it is an explanation. The more logical explanation is the lack of impediments for the same fish species to migrate from Lake Mead. And the argument I would make is that these same fish species has shown, or particular to smallmouth and let's say striper or whatever, have made similar migrations, and I've observed this myself, from Lake Powell up towards the confluence of the Gunnison and Colorado River in the Grand Junction area of Colorado. So I don't know. Anyway, they're shitting a brick about it because it's apparently, the predation of these fish. But I would also argue that in other instances where this has occurred in western Colorado and eastern Utah, that these fish species tend to coexist and cohabitate, despite the alarmist and despite the millions of dollars either promoting the eradication of certain predatory fish or the subsequent development of fish ladders, which is fine. Actually, that fish ladder thing is pretty cool because they have these dams which can impede spawning habitats of some of these native fish. So I actually am okay with that. If you have one of these like roller dams that they have on the Colorado River when you get more further into Colorado that do impede fish movement, which normally, like whether they have a native trout species or a humpback sucker that are going to move through these things, or need to move to their, I guess what they call ancestral spawning grounds, or they need to go up there, just that's a normal movement. A fish ladder, if they are proven scientifically capable of doing these things, then why not? You can do that. I understand that seems logical, it seems to work. But these trying to simply eradicate other fish, that seems illogical. I guess you take all the, what they did with the catfish in Colorado, they took all the limits off right there, and it has destroyed the catfishing fishery, which that's where a lot of people buy fishing licenses there to go fish in those for catfish. So one, you destroy the driver of outdoor economic activity and the interest in the outdoor activities by targeting these fish, but two, it's almost impossible to totally eradicate them. Excuse me, I got allergies like you wouldn't believe, so. Completely. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense. I just want to leave you with that. Something else to look at that's going on in this region of the country as we go through this drought as well is the supposed impact on other native species of fish in this area. But anyway, I'll subscribe if you can. Talk to you later.